Yeah, go for it. That's fine.
Okay, guys, this is Farmer's Barn Hanger episode number 13. We got a special guest on the show tonight. His name is Steve Zagel, and he is a commercial airline pilot, and he's also with the Waterloo Warbirds. Steve, do you want to give a brief description of what you do?
Yeah, sure. So pre-COVID, I was Airbus A321, A330 captain with a major air carrier known as Air Transat. Post-COVID, of course, the airline industry and the aviation industry as a whole is taking a bit of a kicking. So presently on layoff, along with many of my compatriots. On the side, I've been volunteering with Waterloo Warbirds for the last 3 years, just over 3 years. Initially, I was doing like line crew work, pulling shocks, marshalling airplanes, strapping passengers in, just kind of jack of all trades, just because I've had 20 plus years of aviation experience. And in the last year, I started flying the L-29. I'm not super experienced on it. It's we as pilots, we have to pay for our own airtime, and we have to pay for fuel and a little bit of maintenance costs. It's quite reasonable. However, I mean, 60-year-old airplane, a jet especially, burns a lot of fuel. So I haven't been able to really expand on that. My plan was to start really flying in earnest this spring. I was going to fly the Harvard and then as well as the L-29, but then of course COVID interfered, took my job, and here I am. So I run social media. I run a number of programs at Waterloo Warbirds, and I'm also now the head of training for ground crew, etc. So it's been an interesting and fun experience getting involved in the warbird community, coming from a civilian pilot background. I've been flying for over 20 years.
Okay, that sounds really good. Now, it was Canada Day just a couple days ago, and you were actually up in the
Yep.
air in the
Yep.
L-29 riding shotgun. Do you want to give us
Yeah.
a little bit of taste of what it feels like to be in a jet like that, up in the air, going so fast and
Yeah.
whatnot?
Going so fast. Yeah, absolutely. So the L-29 is an interesting aircraft. I call it the 172 of jets. Now, you guys are probably pretty aviation savvy. You know what a Cessna 172 is. It's
Yeah.
relatively straightforward training aircraft. The L-29 it's a Czech built, originally Russian powered with a Russian engine in it, and from the 1960s. It ended up in the L-39, which I see you have one behind you.
Yep.
So the L-29 is kind of the predecessor to the L-39, and it's a great little airplane. It's a straight wing jet. So as far as handling, etc., it's very forgiving. It's very easy, and systems wise, it's very simple. It's got push button gear, which is new to me. Usually, I'm used to a big lever, and it's got push button flaps. It's got an RL-29 is very unique. It's the only one in Canada with the Rolls-Royce Viper engine in it, which gives about 30% more thrust. So the thing's got a lot of power. It's overpowered almost for it. The L-29 was originally designed by the Czechs to house the Rolls-Royce Viper engine. But of course, the Russians, because they're part of the Warsaw Pact at the time, they said, "Niet, you will have Russian engine." So they put a much more inferior Russian engine in it. So ours is very unique
Nice.
and very fast. So it accelerates like crazy. Now, as far as speed-wise, it's not going to break the sound barrier. It's not going to come close. It's about 440
Yeah.
knots is the maximum speed. But to the average person, that's pretty fast. I come from the jet world. I've been flying jets for about 10 years. So to me, it's normal to be in the downwind doing 180 knots, almost 200 knots, do a low pass at 220 to 250 for a safety speed. So it's a lot of fun. It's very forgiving to fly. It's very docile, but it's got a great roll rate, and it's got a lot of power, so it's very unique. And with regards to Canada Day, that was very interesting because I don't have any formation experience.
I see.
Being a career airline pilot, of course, we want to be as far away from people as
Yep.
possible. And it was my goal when I was young to be in the military, and it was my dream to be an Air Force pilot, which my grandfather was during the war. But the glasses kind of conspired against me. So at a young age, I realized I couldn't be a pilot in the Air Force. So I went the another route and I joined the Army. And then I got out of high school and realized I could be an airline pilot or a civilian pilot, and so I went that route instead.
Nice.
So it's been very rewarding. It's been a lot of fun. So I got a little bit of the military experience, the Army, which was a lot of fun, and I mean I could talk forever about that. At the end of the day, my goal was to fly, and that's what I've done for 20 plus years, and it's been very rewarding. And warbird flying is new to me, and it's been within the last 3 years, and it's been a great experience, and working with the Waterloo Warbirds has been a great experience as well. So it's definitely opened a lot of horizons for me, pun intended.
Okay, I got a couple questions here.
Shoot.
One of my viewers, his name is Wild Bill. He's a remote control pilot as well.
Okay.
He says, Steve, what is your favorite warbird?
Oof, Spitfire, hands down, no question.
That's nice.
Yeah, although I mean that's a. I apologize for the dogs. That's a tough question because there's so many. Like, if you were to put me in front of any warbird ever and I could fly one, it would be a Spitfire.
Nice.
And but if you were to say, "Hey, do you want to fly my P-51?" I'd be there at a heartbeat. If you say, "Hey, do you want to fly my Mosquito?" I'd be there at a heartbeat. So that's a tough question. What's my favorite warbird? All of them.
Yeah.
But if I had to pick one, it'd be a Spitfire for sure.
Okay, I got a few more questions to ask you myself. I started flying remote control it's been on and off for a while, about 6 years, but I think last year was the first year I started getting into it full time. And I started with like a small electric propeller airplane, and I'm right into electric jets now, and I got a turbine powered model in a shed actually that puts out about 22 pounds of thrust, and I haven't really been able to fly it just yet because the event's being canceled, and I'm new to flying them. So, but hoping to get it up in the air sometime soon. And yeah, so we got some questions here from the viewers. You guys want to ask Steve anything? Let me know in the chat. One's trying to question like you for saying turbofan engine, and someone's saying that he wants to go for a ride in it.
Okay. What about the turbofan engines? There's a difference between a turbojet and a turbofan, depending on the era of aircraft. So if they want to discuss that, I'm happy to do it. I'm not an AME, so I'm not going to be perfect at it. But
okay. Now, have you had any, like, in your time of flying, did you say what age you were when you started, when you did the course and was doing it?
Yeah, so I started when I was 18. I just got out of high school. My plan was to go full-time. I was in the Army Reserve. My plan, kind of out of getting out of high school, was become go full-time Army. And one day I just happened to go by an airport and with a friend of mine, and he was a pilot for Air Cadets. We were in the cadet squadron together. And we went in and talked to a guy who had a brand new airplane. It's called a DA-20 Katana, made by, I think it's Diamond Aircraft. Very small, single-engine turbo. It's a turbo. No, not a turbo. Piston-driven aircraft. And I went in there, and I just kind of re-inspired me into aviation. And I remember asking the guy who owned the company, I said, "Hey, what does it take for me to become a pilot?" And then he basically, this is, 1997. I'm dating myself here. But he gave me a song and dance about the coming pilot shortage, and there's going to be jobs for everybody, and it would be amazing, and I should start next week. And I ate it all up, and I started next week. And I haven't looked back since. It's been quite a ride, I have to say.
Nice.
So, yeah.
About the turbofan engine, his name is Dave's RC. He's got about 1,000 viewers on his channel. He's asking if the L-29 is a turbofan or a turbojet.
Oh, well, the L-29 is modern. It's a turbofan. Yeah, it's got the Rolls-Royce Viper engine in it. So, you're asking me all these technical questions. I got to look it up. But so it is a turbofan. It's more like a lot of our aircraft, like the T-33, for instance, has a turbojet. Yeah. And the MiG with the Kilmanov KV-1 has a turbojet. And a turbojet is an older. It's the first era of jet engines, and there's benefits to a turbojet even today with regards to power and thrust response, etc. The downside to a turbojet, of course, is they suck fuel. Yeah. So the turbofan is more modern. Like the A330 I fly, the A321 has got a fan. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I can get in the difference between a turbojet versus a turbofan, but basically the turbojet uses jet thrust to provide the vast majority of its thrust, which is great if you want power, but it's not great if you want fuel economy. And the turbofan is more efficient, but it uses a fan out in the front. It uses a turbine to power a fan, which then provides you with high bypass air, which then provides you with your thrust. So it's more efficient. If you ever look it up online, there's a gentleman in the States. He does aerobatics, a full aerobatic routine. And I saw him years ago. I don't know if he's still doing it or not. And he had a Lear, I think it was a Learjet 25, which had a turbojet engine in it. And he could do amazing. I'm sure you're familiar with what a Learjet is. It's a corporate jet, basically. And he would do these amazing fully aerobatic routines in a Learjet, but he did it with a Lear 25 with a turbojet engine, not a turbofan. So he had much more thrust.
Mm-hmm. I got a question. GBLynden's RC. He's actually one of the biggest guys in the RC industry on YouTube. He's got about just under 30,000 subscribers. He's asking, have you flown at the Abbotsford Air Show?
No, I've not. I've flown into Abbotsford and corporately. I've never flown into an air show. I mean, I've landed airplanes during an air show, but I'm not an air show pilot, at least not yet.
Okay.
To become an air show pilot, I mean, I can expand on that if you want. But to get into the aerobatic air show side of the industry, you need a lot of money up front because, of course, you got to pay for your own training. You got to pay for a lot of aerobatic time. They don't just let anyone jump into aerobatics and say, oh hey, I got a PITS and I'm going to go do some loops over an air show down to 50 feet. You need to actually do a lot of experience and training. It's something you need to build up to, and it's very expensive. Mm-hmm. And there's not much money in the air show industry. Maybe in the States where they have huge air shows, but definitely not in Canada. So I would love to one day. I'm working towards that slowly but surely. But that'll be a while yet, unfortunately, for me.
Okay. I got some more questions here.
Shoot.
JCB67, when you mentioned DA20, I can't remember one. JCB, can you give a better description of that question, please?
Yeah, DA20, I mean, I can expand on the aircraft itself. So DA20, it was called a C1 model. It's a single-engine, piston-driven training airplane, low-wing, made in London, Ontario. It's what I did a lot of my initial training on in the late 90s. It had an 80 horsepower Rotax engine in it.
I see.
Yeah, it was I call it an egg beater with wings. It was
Sorry.
It was a very basic airplane, but it was also very gentle, easy to fly, etc. They've expanded on it. They have a twin engine version of it called the Twin Star. They have the DA30, I think DA40. I'm not in that realm anymore just because of the nature of my job. I haven't paid as much attention to the civilian side of flying. I mean, my interest is obviously airliners and warbirds, but they're good airplanes. I mean, it was a good airplane to learn on, that's for sure.
Okay, cool. I got some more questions for you to fire away. If someone wants to get into, like, I know most of the guys are on watching the show right now. They're all in the States.
Okay.
How is it getting into a volunteer group and the process of doing that and all that? Like, how you guys maintain and operate the aircraft, and what does it take to do that? Because I imagine it's very expensive.
It is very expensive, and it's especially the States. If you're American, you're lucky if you want to be in that realm because there's so many more options. And I don't know the States, so I can't comment on every group. But we worked with the Commemorative Air Force. I think 2 years ago, we had the B-29 Fifi. Mm-hmm. Come through, do a sort of swing through Canada on a tour, which was fantastic. So we had them we hosted them in Waterloo for about 3 or 4 days. In the States, there are large and small warbird groups. You might find someone who's operating one warbird. They might have a Harvard or AT-6 Texan. In Canada, we call it the Harvard. In the United Kingdom, they call it the Harvard. In the States, they call it the Texan. And you can find one person, and you just go. What you have to do is you got to find a small airfield, not a big one necessarily, because typically they're going to be small airfields where they have a couple warbirds, mm-hmm. And you got to get down there and you got to meet the people. And you can search online. You can find warbird groups. I guarantee you that warbird groups, and ours is no different, they get 100 people a week messaging and asking if they can join. And listen, like I don't mean to poo-poo the people that message us and want to join, etc. We appreciate it, but the thing is, like, we can't accommodate everyone as much as we wish we could. And so there needs to be an element of trust as well, because, like, let's say there's a warbird group in the middle of I'm going to screw up my states, but let's say like Birmingham, and it's a small airfield outside of Birmingham. I think it's in Alabama. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm Canadian. Sorry, guys. Anyways, let's say you're near there, and there's a small warbird group, and let's say they have 2 airplanes. They have a P-51 and they have a Texan, and it's owned by some rich guy, because usually it's privately owned. It's never government owned. And that guy's got a $5 million airplane and a P-51, give or take. And then he's got an AT-6. He's not going to let anyone show up and touch his airplane. True. So the more aviation experience you have, even if it's just being a line guy or it's being an RC pilot, even you RC pilots, you definitely have a lot more. You understand things like propellers hurt, I shouldn't walk into it, which seems basic to all of us. Yep. Or jet engines suck things into it, I can't go in front of it. But that seems common sense to you and I. But we've got some civilians who just, like, I've had civilians when I used to work on the ramp up in the Northwest Territories, just walking right towards a spinning propeller, and I had to tackle them because they just don't have that baseline knowledge. So you need to really highlight your aviation knowledge and experience. You need to get to know these people, because it's all based on trust. And you need to hang out there, just be the Johnny on the spot. And once they get to know you, they get to know you're keen, they get to know that you're knowledgeable. They'll probably invite you in. It all depends on the organization, because, and if you, like I said, if you're in the United States, you are spoiled because you have so much opportunity there. There's so many small warbird groups that are great. Now, the downside is there's some warbird groups that are terrible. And I don't mean to smear everybody, but you have to be careful about maintenance. You have to be careful about the safety culture, etc. And I don't mean to smear everyone in the industry, but I mean there is a safety element, and you want to be involved with a professional group that's going to do things right and take your safety and the safety of the passengers under advisement. If you're ever involved in a warbird group and they're skimping on maintenance, they're being kind of cheap, etc., I would stay away from that, because you don't want to be involved with it. There's a lot of, aviation is a cruel mistress. It can be a wonderful thing, but if you don't pay it the proper respect, it can be a terrible thing. And you don't want to be up for a ride in somebody's aircraft that they didn't service properly, and they've been kind of doing things on the side cheaply, and you have an engine failure, etc. Mm-hmm. So I always caution people about that. I'm not saying they're all like that. I'm not even saying the majority of them are that. It's a minority, but just be careful. Because people can get carried away, people can see a big, beautiful P-51 or a big, beautiful AT-6 or, a DC-3 or something like that, and be kind of blown away with the romance of it and not see the potential threats that lie in there. But you can't go wrong with some of the commemorative Air Force. I work with those guys. They're fantastic. Nice.
Now, I'm going to give the guys some time to ask some questions. I'm going to say, so you're more on the commercial side of flying.
Yes.
You already gave us a little description of what it's like during the quarantine period, but what was it like right before it hit? Like where were you flying, right?
Great.
Like, where was your last flight before that happened?
So my last flight, was March 15th. We kind of knew things were winding down. And I was flying out of Quebec City in the French-Canadian province of Quebec. And I was flying down to Cuba, actually. And we do a lot in the wintertime. So the airplane I fly is an Airbus 321. And last summer I was flying an A330, which is a larger intercontinental wide-body aircraft. And I was flying last summer like Rome and Amsterdam and London and Lisbon, Portugal. So kind of living that kind of jet set life that everyone thinks is amazing. But when you're like a guy like me who likes to be home, it's not so amazing. But it's got its own challenges, of course. But it's a wonderful job. I can't complain. So I was flying the A321, which is a smaller aircraft, 190 seats. And I was flying to Cuba and Cancun, Mexico, and Panama City, and flying Canadians because it's cold in the winter up here in Canada, and I flew them down to warm destinations. But we have the A321 Neo, which is we're the launch customer in North America actually. It stands for New Engine Option. It's basically a more efficient version of the A321, and that aircraft is actually, we can fly it over the Atlantic very easily. It's not as long range as an A330, but we'd fly Toronto to like London, Gatwick. We'd fly to Nantes in the north of France. We'd fly to Portugal. So you do some transatlantic flying, which was a great experience. I kind of dump on the North Atlantic flying just because you fly all night, you end up being tired, you're 6 time zones away from home. There's certain challenges, but there's also you're crossing the ocean and at 4 o'clock in the morning, you start seeing the sunrise coming up right in your face over Ireland. You see the west coast of Ireland. You're flying over the White Cliffs of Dover. You're flying over Paris, and you can look down and see the Eiffel Tower. There's a lot of cool aspects to it. So as much as sometimes I like to dump on the staying up all night and being many time zones away from home, there's definitely a lot of fun to it as well.
Okay, I got a question for you, Steve. This is from Wild Bill again. Steve, have you ever had a stowaway?
No, not to my knowledge. So that's an interesting. It's an interesting question. So. There's a few spots. I used to fly a Boeing 737, and then in the gear bay, there's a kind of a spot where I read that a lot of stowaways could shove themselves into, which would be insane. You would never want to do it. You would probably. I don't recommend it for anybody. You probably die, and if you don't, you're very lucky. But when the gear closes, it can mean some semblance of pressurization. So you might not die from hypoxia. You'll probably die from hypothermia because it's really effing cold. At altitude, it's minus 56 usually an average where we're flying.
Yeah.
But in Cuba, Cuba's well known for having a lot of stowaways because it's a communist country and people don't want to live there for some strange reason. So whenever you taxi out in Cuba, you have a vehicle that follows you. And in that vehicle is usually armed guards, and they're looking for people who are going to run by the fence and jump into your airplane. And it's kind of weird, but that's what happens. I usually check those nooks and crannies because, I don't want anyone to die in my airplane. But no, I've not, at least knowingly, had a stowaway.
Okay, I got a question. Steve, have you ever had a flame out before when flying?
No. I landed on a one engine once, and this is a bit of an embarrassing story, but I'm going to tell it anyways because you guys can learn from my mistakes. So this is over 10 years ago, and I used to fly out of Calgary for a oil sands support company. I fly all up into northern Alberta into some unprepared strips, etc. Kind of specialized work, but it was a lot of fun. It was really cool work. But I fly smaller turboprop engines, and one day. I went into a place called Bonneville, Alberta. It's very close to Cold Lake. And we pulled in, and I parked the airplane. It was flying a turbine-powered Beech 1900 with a PT6 gas turbine turboprop. And it was cold outside. It was middle of winter, and we put plugs in the engines to kind of keep the heat in the engines. And the plugs were kind of usually they're tied. The inlet plugs are also tied to the prop. I haven't flown props in so long. I forget what they're called now.
I hope to start flying those next summer.
Yeah, for sure, man. They're great. So we had basically a sleeve that would go over the propeller and keep it from rotating because it's a free spinning turbine. So typically the plugs were sewed together with the prop sleeve. And this one wasn't for some reason, and we only had one. So I put it on the engine, which is the right engine, which is the engine we always start. And so we got back to the aircraft. It was really cold out, and we unbuttoned the aircraft really quickly. And I was training a new guy, so I was in the right seat, training a new captain. And we checked everything, and it was really dark, and I missed the plug in the engine, the inlet plug. So we started up the engine. We taxied out. Everything looked fine. Took off, and then we got airborne, and we're about through 2,000 feet, and we looked down, and the engine, the ITT, the internal turbine temperature was just really high. Not exceptionally high, but it was definitely much higher. And we're like, whoa, what's causing this? And then I realized I forgot the frickin' plugs like an idiot. And I looked out and I could see this plug and it was turned sideways in the slipstream. And so the air was going by it, like it wasn't going to kill the engine by any stretch of the imagination, but we had to fly for about an hour and a half to get home. So we talked it over, and I was super embarrassed because, of course, I'm a training pilot. I'm supposed to be teaching people, but just to let you know, guys, in aviation, anyone can make a mistake. Yep. And we pulled the power back to idle. We came back in, we landed, and I ran outside and pulled the plug out, explained everything to the passengers who were like, dude, are you new? And I'm like, oh, today I am. But that was the only time I had anything close to that. So we could have landed in 2 engines, but we chose to pull the power back because we didn't want to damage the engine with a higher temperature. Other than that, no, I've been pretty fortunate in my career. I've only had to declare emergency once, and that was not engine related, thankfully. But yeah, it's the modern engines, like modern PT6s, gas turbines, turbojets, etc. They don't fail very much. It does happen. I mean, we train for it constantly, but no, it's not very common.
Mm-hmm. Just trying to catch up on the chat here.
Yeah, no problem.
Somebody asked me a question. I kind of just got lost in trance right now. So yeah, I want to be a pilot. Like, I want to get my license done next year when I have a little bit more money.
Okay.
And I know how it kind of works out. Like, I know what the fee is and whatnot. It's a very, very long process, and I don't think I'd be.
It can be. It depends on a lot of things, and it depends on how much money you have. Unfortunately, like all things. And how much time you have to commit to it, and also what your end goal is. So, what is your end goal? Do you want to be a private pilot? Do you want to be a commercial pilot? Like, what's
private pilot? I'd like to get a float plane and be able to fly from my place to the cottage up north, which is a very far car drive, and I also like to fly around.
I hope you have money.
Yeah. I should.
Because float planes are not cheap. So, okay, that's
there is an airport
now.
There's an airport not far from the cottage. It's actually in Minden. So it's not that
Minden?
far.
I've probably been there. I've been in almost every airport in Ontario. I can assure you. So there's a few things you can do that will save you some money. One thing is you can become a glider pilot.
Yep.
And glider pilot, your time as a glider pilot actually will count towards your time as a private pilot. Mm-hmm. And that could save you a lot of money because gliders are a lot cheaper to fly, obviously, because you're not burning gas. So that's one way of doing it. And like, where are you located?
Not far from Waterloo, actually, about 30 minutes.
Okay. So SOSA is
I've heard
probably the gliding. Yeah, they're great. I know some people there. That's one way you can shave off some of the experience you need. You can also start off as a recreational pilot. There's a recreational pilot permit, which is kind of just a more reduced private pilot's license. Now, if you're looking at floats, I've flown floats. I flew floats in the Northwest Territories for the first year or so that I was a pilot. And floats can be very challenging, very rewarding, and very dangerous. Yeah. So it's one of those things that if you were, let's say you got a private pilot's license, and you decide to you go and buy a float plane right away. We have a saying in the industry. It's called when we look at a complex airplane like a float plane or like a Beech Baron or something like that someone with, let's say, means, like maybe a doctor, for instance, someone who's got some money and they can go out and buy these things. We call those airplanes doctor killers. Okay. And the reason is because they're complex airplanes that people can that are still affordable for people who are like. So I always tell people when you're first starting out, you want an airplane that can just barely kill you. And float planes, if you were to jump in a float plane right after getting your private pilot's license, I would recommend highly.
That quick, no.
I'm trying to help you out here, but I would highly recommend you find a very experienced float pilot, and I know lots, and you fly with them for 50 to 100 hours, and you get the fundamentals down very, very solid. Like I do it myself, but I haven't flown floats in 20 years, so I would probably be terrible at it.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the most fun I've ever had flying was flying floats, but it's an extra added element or dimension that you need to be very mindful of.
It is my dream airplane to have one day, and I'd probably start off with like a 172 or 150 or something like that small, or even start off with an ultralight.
Yeah, so some of those I haven't flown an ultralight, but some of those ultralights are pretty damn cool. You got to be super careful because, of course, they can get blown around pretty easy there because of their weight category. But there's a lot of options out there. I mean, you could probably get a one. You want to get a 150 with a bigger engine, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And a 172. I've flown a 172 on floats, and it's a dog. So you definitely want to get like 172 XP or something with a bit bigger engine to fly floats with, like a Super Cub. Depends on your budget, of course. Like if you look at any airplane and you want to put it on floats, just double the price.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. A Maul on floats would be a great airplane. It's a 4-seater. It's got lots of power. I don't think they're exorbitantly expensive. Yeah, I'd recommend that, or something like that.
Okay.
Or a Turbo Beaver if you got like lots of money.
I don't think I have that much money. No, maybe my budget is more like from either $30K all the way up to maybe 80, 90, or maybe even 100. If I
100, you can get a decent. I haven't looked too closely, but you can get a decent float plane for $100,000.
Yeah.
And don't quote me on it because I'm not in that space, but yeah, you can find something. Probably be a 2-seater, but you can definitely find something in that. But you got to walk before you run, so get the license first.
Yeah. I got a question. Not a question. He's just saying, nice to hear from you and meet you, Steve. Very impressive your aviation knowledge. That was Dave's RC. He's actually getting ready for his live show, which is going to be in about an hour or so.
Cool. Hi, Dave.
And he's got 1,000 viewers on his channel too. So
cool.
Known him quite well around the states.
I have to say I've never really flown an RC plane, and I think it always impresses when I see you guys flying it, because I look at that thing and I'm like, I would crash the thing instantly.
You ever come out to Kitchener-Waterloo Flying Dutchman scale rally?
No, I'd love to come out sometime. You let me know, and I'll come out and watch. I would. Don't let me take control though, because I guarantee you, I'm a career pilot. But if I had to look in an extra dimension, like if I was in the airplane, I'd be fine. But like, looking from the ground, trying to figure which way to go, I'd be. In video games, I play like Battlefield or something once in a while, and everyone, usually my name, like my tag name, used to be like YYZ pilot, so everyone assumed I was a really good pilot in all these video games. I am terrible at video game pilot.
Well, with the COVID-19 situation being big here in Ontario, our rally is actually canceled this year, but there's still guys that are flying at the field pretty much every day. I'm always there on the weekends. I always let you know when I'm going to be there, and you can come watch me. And
send me a message. I'll come check it out. I've never really, explored that avenue, I guess you could say so much. I mean, when you fly, I hesitate to say real airplanes, but let's say when you fly bigger airplanes, that kind of consumes your life. I'd definitely be interested in watching it. It'd be pretty neat.
Mm-hmm. And we actually got about 24 minutes left until the show's over, because somebody else will be getting ready to go live.
All good.
Someone's saying, no, Wild Bill, that is actually the code for Toronto's airport in Ontario here. That's YYZ. Yep.
The Canadian airports always start off with a C, and then usually it's a Y unless it's a smaller airport. Mm-hmm. But the YYZ is Toronto, which is where I'm based out of. YUL is Montreal. YOW is Ottawa. I used to live in Calgary, which was YYC. But yeah, that's all. Every airport in the world has a 4-letter code. Canadian airports are all kind of standardized. The United States is K. So KIAD, for instance, for that's Niagara Falls. And then you have different... it gets confusing when you fly to Europe, because they have an ICAO airport code, and then they have an IATA airport code. So you got one's different in the flight base, and one's different on the database on your flight management computer, and one's different in the... that gets interesting, because then you're like going to Rome and it's like FCO, but the code is completely different, so it gets confusing sometimes. But you get used to it.
I got a couple questions I want to ask you. So I seen your website, and you can actually book flights for some of your aircraft. And yes. I know it's expensive to run those jets, but I just want to know why the ticket's so expensive.
Well, so we are a privately funded organization. So, for instance, we did that fly past over Cambridge on Canada Day.
Yep.
We put 3 jets up, and that was all paid for by our pilots, and they just did it because they wanted to do it. Once in a while, we might get some funding thrown at us for a certain event or something like that, but usually it doesn't even cover the cost of gas. So if you think about that, my aircraft burns about 800 liters of fuel an hour. I'm trying to do the conversion for the Americans. Sorry, guys. Probably about, let's say, 300 gallons per hour. I'm ballparking.
That's the L-29?
That's the L-29. That's the cheap one.
Yeah.
Okay, so you figure jet fuel right now is actually somewhat cheap because of COVID. Yay. But normally jet fuel is about $1.10, $1.20 Canadian, depending. I'm not 100% because I don't typically pay for jet fuel. So you figure that's about $1,000 an hour. And that's not including your maintenance costs. You got to factor in maintenance as well. So that's just to operate the aircraft. Ballparking. And I'm ballparking. And that's the cheap one. So the T-33, the MiG, or MiG-15, it burns probably 3 times that. I don't know exactly what it burns, but I'm just guessing. Because you're talking about older turbojet engines. So we need to sell flights to keep the operation going, to cover maintenance costs, etc. Like maintaining a 1953 era MiG-15 is not cheap. The parts aren't easy to find. We were quite often sourcing them from Russia or from the States. You're big, boring, and steel. Sometimes we're also doing conversions. Sometimes we did a brake conversion on our MiG-15, for instance. Our Vampire, for instance, we have the only flying Vampire in Canada, and it's got a wooden forward fuselage. If everyone is interested, go on our YouTube page, Waterloo Warbirds. Let's search that. And I did a quite lengthy video series about us refinishing our Vampire because it had 60-year-old Irish linen that was kind of the fabric that was covered. You guys are all RC modelers. You know what fabric is like to put on airplanes. Yep. We'll try putting it on a wooden jet that's 60 years old, 60 plus years old. And then the amount of money that costs. So you guys as RC pilots know how to spend money. I've seen how much those things cost. So just multiply that by about 100, and you have a Cold War era jet.
Yeah.
And how much it costs. So we're trying to keep 4 Cold War era jets and 1 World War II trainer in good repair. Like one thing I will say about Waterloo Warbirds is our aircraft are impeccably maintained. We rely on some aviation professionals. We have probably one of the best warbird mechanics in Canada, in my opinion. Someone might disagree with them. That's fine. They're wrong. And then we got some great volunteers. And then, but it costs a lot of money just to even get parts. To pull. We got to do a hot section on jets. So it's people just see the jet fuel cost and say, well, it can't be that much for a 30-minute flight in an L-29 for fuel. And no, it's not. But what that $2,000 price tag for the L-29, for instance, is paying for is hopefully part of the maintenance for that L-29 going forward. We don't make money. We're here just to maintain our organization, right? So, it is expensive. We're offering a very unique experience. And I think if you price this out comparing, especially if you factor in the cost of the dollar for you American viewers, coming up north to Canada, once all this COVID nonsense is over, it can be quite economical. You factor in we have a lot of people come from the United States, and a lot of people come from Europe, actually.
Sure, because the price difference, right, for the plane tickets, like the guys from the States, like here it's what, $4,000, $5,000 for a plane ticket. They might even spend $2,500 their own money, right, because of the rate of prices. So So there's a lot of sticker shock when people ask us about our flights. Like they say, like, "Oh, I want to fly that MiG. How much is it?" And we're like, "Well, it's $4,800 Canadian." And they're like, "What? That's crazy." I'm like, "Well, that's a MiG. It's a 1953 era, fighter. It burns a ton of gas, but it goes really fast and it does really cool things." So. Yeah, it is prohibitive. I mean, if someone's looking for the thrill of a lifetime, I tell them to go up on our Harvard. Our Harvard pilots are incredibly experienced, aerobatic pilots, warbird pilots, and they'll take you up. They'll loop you. They'll roll you. They'll do all kinds of amazing stuff. You'll have a blast. We put GoPros up. We mount GoPros for everyone so they can get the hero shot of them rolling inverted. It's a very unique experience, and we don't sell out every year, but we do pretty good, and we maintain the operation. And we've been operating for 6 years now, so we're obviously doing something right. Mm-hmm. If I had the money to actually buy the L-29 ticket, I'd definitely do it with you.
I'd take you up
not for free, really.
I wish I could, buddy.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah.
But
when I win that lottery, for sure, free rides to everybody.
Yeah. But the L-29, like, how is it in its performance? Like, obviously it's not supersonic. It can't do any of that crazy fast stuff, but like it can do all the rolls and inverteds, right? And
correct. Yeah, you can. I've got a video. I can probably send it to you of me going inverted in it. We don't do too heavy of aerobatics. We have airspace limitations around Toronto because we're kind of below the arrival path for arrivals into Toronto, which is Canada's busiest airport. So like doing something like a loop in a jet, it takes up a lot of real estate, a lot of airspace. So we don't do that. We're here to have fun. We're not here to be astronauts. We're not snowbird pilots or Blue Angel pilots or Thunderbird pilots. But what we do is we typically will go up, we'll do some 4 or 5G turns. And people will be like, oh my God, you can do 7Gs. Why don't you do that? I'm like, yeah, well, 7Gs isn't comfortable. I'm sorry. It's 4. I do 4 and I'm like, this isn't great. Like I do it for the experience. If we do an overhead brake or something like that, you're pulling 4, sometimes 5Gs. And it's cool for a couple seconds. But, most people who are flying are not experienced pilots, and it's not comfortable. We'll go up, we'll do some rolls, we'll do high G turns. We'll roll it inverted and just stay there. We'll do 4-point rolls. We'll do, we can do like an Immelman sometimes. Like, it all depends on the person's tolerance and then what the pilot's also comfortable with. But typically we're doing rolls. And honestly, like most people, they're just thrilled with a roll. They're thrilled with steep turns. They're thrilled with going inverted. And then we come in and we typically do a high-speed pass down the runway about like 50 feet or so with an aggressive pull-up and a left or right brake, pulling a bunch of Gs. Like a couple of airplanes have smoke on, so you got the smoke going. Like you get the full experience, and it's very unique. And I haven't heard anyone complain yet. Let's just say that. And I've done probably over 100 rides in my last 3 years.
Nice.
So, yeah, it's very unique. Now, the Harvard, you can do a bit more because, of course, the Harvard's not eating up as much airspace. It's a lot slower.
Yeah.
That's a Texan for you Americans out there. Harvard, it's got a great roll rate. We up to 4,500 feet. We can roll it. We can. You can't do inverted. You can't do sustained inverted flight because it doesn't have the oil system for that. But you can do loops in the Harvard very easily. It's a beautiful airplane to fly. I've done a lot of loops. We quite often will pull a loop. You'll be doing 180 knots. You'll pull right around. You'll be up the top end of the loop. You're looking up. You can see the horizon. You have the window open. Like you can pull the whole door open, the canopy open. So there's nothing between you and the outside world, which is freaky for some, but awesome for others. And then you get on the bottom of the loop and you pull it up into a beautiful barrel roll. Like it's a great experience. And for bang for your buck, I think we charge around $600 for a ride on Harvard. Don't quote me. I don't have the
prices
numbers
now. It's actually.
Yeah, there you go. You can tell me.
Wait a minute. The prices went down? I thought it was.
They went down. Yes, they did.
Oh,
they went down this year. Yeah,
that's new.
Bargain.
T33 is $2,800 and the L-29 is $2,000 for a ticket. And how long are you in the air for again?
About 30, 35 minutes.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
$2,000 going like that.
I know. It's.
I'd have to sell some of my remote control models to make up for that.
You might have to, but here's the thing too: is like people say, "Oh, it's only 30 minutes." Like we pack a lot in that 30 minutes, and trust me, by the time that 30 minutes is over, you're done. It's especially at the MiG really doesn't have a loft time much more than 45 to an hour because it burns so much gas. The L-29 is a bit more loft time, but when we do transit flights, we don't go very far. Just because we're burning so much gas.
You think if I had to buy a L-29 ticket, you could keep me up in the air for a bit longer than what it says?
Yeah, between you and me, sure thing. You might have to chip in a couple extra bucks, but we can work something out.
Someday, hopefully. I don't know about this.
One day. Coronavirus kind of killed a lot of plans for a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm actually going skydiving in August with a friend.
That'd be
and that is like a little bit pricey too. It's like about $500, but we're going to be jumping at 10,000 feet, so I can't wait to do that.
Well, it's all about the experience, right? Like, where else are you going to get the opportunity to fly in a MiG-15 or a T-33? And I'm going to throw this out too. There's T-33s available in the United States as well, because the T-33 is a Lockheed design. The Canadian Canadair T-33 is the one you want to fly, and that's because the Canadian T-33 has a Rolls-Royce Nene engine in it, and not, I can't remember the name of the engine in the Lockheed T-33. It's got more power. So I'm going to little shout out to my Canadian peeps. We built a good airplane. But basically, what we did in the Cold War is we would take an American designed airplane, in a British engine, and we'd make them make sweet love, and then they would come out with an amazing airplane. That's what they did with the F-86 or the CF-86 in Canada. They took a Rolls-Royce engine, shoved it into a Sabre, and made a much better airplane. And the same with the T-33.
I see. No, I see you got weight restrictions too, so I'm under that, which is awesome. So I might look into that, Steve. Maybe this summer if I do end up deciding to sell some models, which
sure.
I can always buy again. It's not that hard, but I'm not going to spend
like
my
I said,
own hard-earned money on a ticket.
No, of course. What I would recommend is go fly the Harvard. You would love it. Honestly, the Harvard is the best. I'm not trying to downsell you on a jet. If you want to fly a jet, I mean, we're happy to hook you up. And there is a unique experience in a jet. But for me, and maybe I'm biased because I fly a jet for a living. So flying a jet isn't necessarily a big deal. Like the speed and etc. I'm used to it. The L-29 is actually slow compared to what I usually fly. Yeah. But the experience you get in the Harvard with a big radial engine in front of it, the stuff you can do. For me, it's bang for the buck, and that's a good entry level warbird to get into. There's other warbirds you can fly like a chipmunk or a tiger moth, and I've flown them, and they're great. But having a big roaring radial engine in front of you, you can't beat it.
Okay, some of my viewers want to say something. George Watts, he's actually, I don't think he's a pilot, but he's a remote control pilot. He's into the turbines a lot, the remote control turbines.
Okay.
And he said that an old MiG flew into jets over Kentucky last July. And I think it was a 15. That's pretty cool. And
so there's a number of there's plenty more MiGs in the United States than there are in Russia. Yeah. Older MiGs. Obviously, the Russians got all their all there. But yeah, so after the Cold War ended, a lot of Americans, a lot of rich Americans, because you guys got a lot of rich people, good on you, went to Russia and bought up a lot of MiGs because they're cheap. Mm-hmm. Now, jet warbirds are actually surprisingly inexpensive to buy. They are incredibly expensive to maintain. Yeah. That's why they're cheap. Like you can probably buy an L-29 for like $60,000, which it's a lot of money, but as far as like an airplane goes, it's pretty cheap. Now the maintenance, the fuel, etc. You're going to eclipse that in no time. So in the United States, there's a lot of jet warbirds. Or a lot of warbirds in general, and it could have been a MiG-15, it could have been a MiG-17. There's an airshow pilot, I think his name's Randy Ball, who flies a MiG-17 with an afterburner in air shows, and it's pretty amazing stuff he does. Look him up on Facebook if you want to watch it.
MiG-17 model. I don't know. Can you see it in the background there, Steve?
Yep, I see it. Yep, for sure. I fly down to Cuba. I see MiG-19s and MiG-21s all the time.
That's one of my biggest electrics.
That's pretty cool.
Actually, I'm going to do a turbine conversion to it. I just haven't made a decision yet. I tried it on electric. Its battery, where the battery sits, isn't really the best spot. It's not. It doesn't take a wide variety of batteries, and it doesn't really fly for too long. Anyway, but
I was gonna say it probably suck a lot of juice if it was running on electricity.
Yeah, but it's definitely going to be getting a turbine soon.
Cool.
I got a guy saying that his name is Deuces Wild RC. He had a great aerobatic experience in the Marchetti turboprop with Air Combat USA. Have you ever, what a Marchetti?
A Marchetti. Oh, Marchetti. Oh, let me look it up because I'll probably recognize when I see it. I'm just going to look it up on my phone.
Probably flown over.
I recognize the name.
Saying he did 5 Gs in it.
Well, that's a lot. Yeah, that's without a G suit. That you can. I got friends of mine who used to be fighter pilots in the Royal Canadian Air Force, and they said they pull up to 7 without a G suit, and I've pulled 5, and that's a lot. Again, I'm not used to it, right? You really got to clench your extremities and try and suck in your gut as much as possible. Yeah. Marchetti.
I was on a roller coaster ride in Universal. It's called the Hulk, and I think you get 4 Gs on that roller coaster ride, but it's only for like a few, not even a couple seconds, and it's pretty incredible feeling that, but I haven't felt anything more than that.
For a couple of seconds, for sure, it's when you're pulling a sustained 4 or 5G turn. Yeah. Like you can get the gray out. I haven't done it. Like I'm used to it. That Marchetti is actually a pretty cool airplane. I just pulled it up. I would love to. I'd love to buy one day. I'd love to buy lots of airplanes.
Yeah,
just takes money.
Have an addiction like that.
Yeah.
That's why most of us are RC pilots, because It's inexpensive.
I should be an RC pilot. It'd probably be a lot more cost effective.
Yeah. George Watson, he's been in the biplane that's looped, rolled, and flew inverted. A lot of fun, he's saying. And
they are a lot of fun.
The guy wants to also Deuces Wild says he wants to fly with the Blue Angels. That'd be amazing, but
yeah, it would be. Good luck. You need to know some people for sure to get on the Blue Angels.
He said he was worn out after the maneuvers, loops, rolls.
It does take a lot out of you. Like if you, a lot of people think like, oh, I'm only out for 20 minutes or so, but that's like most aerobatic pilots. They only go up for a 20-minute, maybe 30-minute flight at the most. Mm-hmm. So one of the airplanes I was looking at purchasing before the coronavirus came along was Citabria. It's a tail dragger 2-seater airplane. Tandem seated, but you can get different ones. 115 horse, 150 horse, 180 horse. I was looking at a 150 horse, and it's fully aerobatic. No, it's not going to do crazy things, but it's going to do enough to kind of for me to get my aerobatic chops in. It's going to maybe start going to competitions and stuff like that. Let's call it an affordable aerobatic entry level airplane for a guy like me. And I was probably a week away from pulling the trigger and buying one, and then Corona came. But I've looked at Pitts. Like a Pitts S2, you can buy them for under $100,000 if you find the right one.
I got some. Hold on.
Shoot. All right, I'm waiting.
This is one of my indoor planes I fly. It's
okay.
Actually Pitts
there we go.
S1S. It's very aerobatic indoors and outdoors. It's very fun.
Yeah. Well, the real one's just as aerobatic, I assure you.
Yep, they are.
Yeah. I mean, you can pick up a Pitts S1. Don't quote me because I haven't looked lately, but you can pick them up for relatively inexpensive because they're only a single seater, right? Mm-hmm. Most people want a 2-seater, and for me, the airplane's got to have 2 seats because I don't want to just have the fun. I want to share it. I want to take my wife up and terrify her.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're super cool, super maneuverable. So I got certain requirements for any airplane I purchase. It's got to be aerobatic. It's got to be relatively quick, and it's got to be a 2-seater. Yeah. So that limits me. And I'm a big guy. I'm 6'3", so it's got to be big enough to fit me.
Wow, you can hardly even fit in the T33 then, because that's what it says. You have to be a minimum 6'3".
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. Well, yeah. The L-29 is a tight fit too. I have to tell you, but you can do it. It's just you're not comfortable, but you can do it.
FarmermanRoesRC is asking that. Well, he's saying that the local airport by his place has a museum, and they have a T-33, a P-51, A-1 Skyraider, and several other planes. Awesome place.
Yeah.
He's also saying, Steve, take up RC. It's affordable. And
all right, done.
Just come out to my field.
I'm
get you hooked.
I'm gonna embarrass myself because I'll show up at the RC field and everyone will be like, "Oh, this guy's a real pilot. Like he'll be able to fly these things no problem." Yep. And I will just crater airplane after airplane. Like I'll look like a complete idiot. But I'll take my own advice. I'll buy something that can just barely kill me. Maybe a glider. I'll start off with a glider.
Actually, most of the airplanes I fly, and same with my viewers here, we buy a lot of E-Flght products, and they're made by Horizon Hobby and E-Flght, and most of them have this like an incredible receiver with a built-in gyro that you can have a mode on it. It's like baby mode, which keeps the plane from overbanking, like it won't let you roll it, and it's like
so basically it's an Airbus.
Pardon? Yeah. Well,
basically it's an Airbus.
It's got pitch and bank angle limits, and it won't let you like.
Okay.
And if you let off the controls, it'll level itself out. And then you can switch it off and go full aerobatic and just a switch like that. And it's not hard to fly at all. So it makes it so fun. So basically it's an
Airbus, which is what I fly. So
yeah.
that sounds pretty cool. That be in my wheelhouse, at least until I got some experience.
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, I'm talking to my viewers. It's almost the end of my show. I got to give the other guy time ready, and I might have to go to the washroom or get a bite to eat or something. I haven't had supper yet. So everyone's saying thanks for the show. They definitely want to see you again, Steve, and hopefully next time you can give us a hangar tour from...
That'd be great. I will definitely do that.
We'd love to have you on the show again with that, yeah.
For sure, yeah. Maybe next couple weeks or a month or two, we'll touch base again, and I'll get you to our hangar, and I can show you a couple cool airplanes up close.
Yeah, I even...
sorry, go ahead.
I even posted a video on my channel just today of what I recorded last the other day when you guys were doing a flyover. So
Okay.
I got that on my channel too.
Well, if you want a little taste test, guys, if you check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Just look up Waterloo Warbirds and follow our YouTube channel. We've got some good stuff on there. I run a lot of the social media. I'm obviously not a pro. We're all volunteers, but we do our best. And the airplanes speak for themselves. We got 5 unique, awesome airplanes, and potentially a 6th one. We got a T-33 that is in pieces right now, but we're going to put it back together. But yeah, check us out. And if you ever out at an air show or an aviation day and you see us, be sure to swing by and say hi.
Okay. Okay, everyone's saying goodbye. They love it.
See you guys. Take care.
Can't wait to see you again. Steve, thanks for this interview. We'll touch base over the next few weeks for
sure.
Another one, and I'll have to have you out in my field. And obviously, yeah, just follow the social distancing guidelines, and that's about it. It's really
put your mask on. Don't cough on anybody.
It's really cool, actually. There's a lot of guys that fly large models, like ones with like 100-inch or bigger wingspan and whatnot. And the odd time we do get a turbine, like a remote-controlled turbine pilot, out to the field every now and then.
That's cool.
And he's got some big airplanes that are like 3 meters or bigger in wingspan. So
wow,
that's
impressive.
Pushing about, well, the engine he runs in that is a 220 newtons. So you convert that to pounds for thrust, and it's a big model.
Yeah, for sure.
But anyway,
I'm not gonna fly that one.
Nope. I'll probably give you my timber to start off with.
Sure.
Or the Viper.
Give me the slowest one possible.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks, Steve. It's been great talking to you.
And my pleasure. Take care.
Okay, thanks.
All the best, guys.
Okay, guys, hang on with me for a little bit. Okay, I like to get my face back on the screen. So just hold on. I'm still here. Don't leave yet. Don't leave yet. I repeat, do not leave yet. I'm still here. Okay, guys, I'm back. Yeah, that interview went very, very well. He actually did most of what I thought I would ask him for me, which is really nice. I didn't have to ask him too much, and we're definitely going to have him on the show again. And yeah, I'm sure hopefully next time we get a little bit more viewers. I was watching the stream on YouTube, and we weren't getting that many viewers. I think we had 15 at the highest, but that's not a problem. Make sure you guys check out Waterloo Warbirds' website. Give them a follow on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. I've posted their information. I posted links in the description for that. And even once this COVID is over, you guys are free to come to Canada once it's over. And yeah, book a flight if you can. If you're ever in Waterloo area and you want to go up in a jet, and you guys are probably going to be saving a lot more money than I will because of the conversion. But yeah, it's definitely worth it. I definitely do want to get my pilot's license next year. And I do want to go up. And I'll probably go up into Harvard soon. It's not that much. But anyway, thanks for being here. This has been Farmer's Barn Hanger episode 13. Next week, we'll go over the new E-Flite Ultimate Biplane version 2. I'll have that in the hangar. And then I also have some more smart products that I'd like to share with you guys. So other than that, I'm going to end it off here. Yeah, thanks.